to enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. On the day of the Imperial selection, I sneezed so violently that the tiles on the Grand Hall rattled. Xiao Xun looked at me as if I were a brown bear that had wandered into a flock of white cranes. In the end, he waved his hand and kept me anyway. Perfect, he said. She can ward off evil for my harem. Later, the great general from the northern frontier sent me a package of wind-dried beef. I replied with a huge basket of fresh radishes. In his letter he wrote, if her ladyship had been born a man, she would surely have been a fine general. On the day I was born, the midwife must have thought she had delivered a fierce warrior deity reincarnated. They say my first cry was so thunderous that several branches on the mulberry tree outside snapped off. My father stood in the courtyard listening to that robust wail, his brows furrowed so tightly they could have crushed a fly between them. At 3 years old, while other girls were chasing butterflies, I was already carrying my younger cousin around the yard in circles. At 7, my mother forced me to learn the guqin. The moment I pressed a finger down, 3 strings snapped. At 10, I went to the training ground to find my elder brother. The drill instructor took one look at me and praised, "What broad shoulders and a sturdy back. This is prime material for martial training." The look in my father's eyes at that moment was exactly the same as if he were looking at an uncollectible debt. To be honest, I really did have the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear. I was dark, tall, and powerfully built. My features in the mirror were actually quite proper, and my eyes held a trace of heroic spirit. Standing there, I looked like a door god, while my cousins starved themselves until they were dizzy just to keep waists no thicker than a handspan. I was busy hugging a whole roasted chicken. Grease smeared across my mouth. Tang tang ah. My mother often sighed as she wiped my mouth. You must believe that someone will one day appreciate your beauty. I nodded solemnly. Yes, among the blind, there will always be at least one. At 12, they sent me to live with my grandmother. Grandmother liked me very much. This build is excellent, strong enough to shoulder heavy work. While other girls embroidered flowers, I played chess with grandmother. While they recited poetry, I read military treatises with her. While they practiced delicate willow-waisted walks, I rode horses on the mountain behind the house. It wasn't to prove that women were no less than men, I simply found embroidery needles too easy to stab myself with. Military books were interesting, and horseback riding felt liberating. When the imperial decree for the selection arrived, my father actually smiled at me. A rare, gentle smile. Mingju, entering the palace is a good escape. The imperial family has plenty of grain. I understood at once. He was rejoicing that he had finally managed to unload this uncollectible debt onto the emperor. The day I packed my luggage, I tucked 2 volumes of Sun Tzu's Art of War at the very bottom of the trunk and casually added a large sack of radish seeds. My father's eyes reddened. I clapped him on the shoulder. He immediately shrank half an inch. "Father, rest assured," I said, grinning so wide my strong white teeth were on full display. "Your daughter knows how to grow radishes. What is there to fear?" On the day of the selection, more than 30 girls stood inside the hall, every one of them fair-skinned, delicate, and slender-waisted, as if a single gust of wind could blow them away. I alone stood there like a brown bear lost among white cranes. I was placed at the very back. The girl in front of me had applied so much powder and rouge that I sneezed 3 times in a row. The commotion was not small. The tiles rattled again. She turned around and glared at me. I answered with a smile. She must have been blinded by my teeth. She huffed and turned away. "Daughter of Lord Shi Huiyuan, the Dali Sai King, Shi Mingju, stepped forward to be presented." I took a deep breath and walked forward. On the dragon throne sat the young emperor, Xiao Xun. Teacup paused halfway to his lips. First he looked at my face, then his gaze traveled down, across my broad shoulders, and finally settled on my rock-steady stance. His expression was spectacularly rich. He sneaked a glance at the Empress Dowager beside him. Her fingers were trembling too. She was probably wondering which part of the selection process had gone wrong to let such a giant slip into the palace. The other candidates giggled behind their sleeves. I remained expressionless, knelt in perfect form, back straight as a pine, voice resonant and clear. "This humble servant, Shi Mingju, greets your majesty and her majesty the Empress Dowager." My knees hit the floor with a solid thud. The hall fell deathly silent. Xiao Xun finally recovered, set down his teacup, and granted me permission to rise. I lifted my head. Those were an extraordinarily beautiful pair of peach blossom eyes. Under normal circumstances, this was the moment he would either drop my plaque and bestow a flower, or keep my plaque and bestow a fragrant sachet. The Empress Dowager clearly wanted to discard it. Her hand was already reaching out. But Xiao Xun suddenly spoke. Keep her. The Empress Dowager's hand froze mid-air. I was stunned as well. Xiao Xun looked at me, the corners of his lips curving up. I understood that smile. It was the smile of a man who had given up all hope. I used to smile like that when I was little too. The Xi family's daughter is dignified and steady. Very good. He granted me the title Consort Duan and assigned me to Jinghua Palace. I performed the proper thanks. When I stood up, I saw Xiao Xun let out a long breath of relief. I understood that expression perfectly. It was as if he were saying, the harem is already a mess anyway. Might as well toss in a guardian deity to suppress evil spirits. Jinghua Palace was actually a wonderful place. It sat at the farthest northwestern corner of the imperial palace. Half the walls were peeling, and the weeds in the courtyard grew taller than a man, but it was vast and quiet. The servants sent by the Internal Affairs Department were all the leftovers no one else wanted. The head eunuch was Fu Shun, whose left leg was slightly lame. He walked with a high step and a low step. The senior palace maid, Qing Xing, had a stutter. Whenever she was nervous she would go, "T, this servant," and never finish. Anyone else would have flown into a rage and demanded to complain to His Majesty. I simply looked at the group of trembling servants standing in the courtyard. Fine, you may stay. Ignoring their stunned faces, I pointed at the sea of weeds. Clear this patch. I have use for it. Fu Shun's leg was inconvenient, so I didn't make him run errands. I let him keep the accounts and watch over the stores. Qing Xing spoke slowly, so I listened patiently. I wasn't bestowing favor, I simply felt that life was already hard enough. Why make it harder for each other? In less than half a month, Jinghua Palace looked completely different. The weeds were gone, the soil had been turned loose and rich, and I scattered the radish seeds I had brought. Looking at that dark, fertile earth, my heart felt strangely at peace. These were finally my days. I never went to pay respects to the Empress Dowager. Every time she saw me she got a headache. I also never went to the imperial gardens to compete for beauty. I was afraid I would make the flowers wither from shame. In Jinghua Palace, I rose with the sun and rested at sunset. Of course the harem was never short of gossip. Consort D was the most favored, and also the fondest of stirring trouble. One day she led a whole group of people over in a grand procession. Seeing me squatting in the vegetable patch in plain clothes, the disdain in her eyes nearly overflowed. Oh my, what is Sister Consort Duan doing? She covered her nose with a handkerchief. The smell of soil is so strong. Sister really has elegant taste, planting vegetables. I heard His Majesty still hasn't flipped your plaque. With a figure like yours, it's no wonder he can't bear it. Her words were vicious. The other consorts around her waited eagerly for a good show. Fu Shun stood beside me, trembling with rage. I glanced at Consort D's waist, so slender it looked like it would snap if bent. Then at my own sturdy arms. Sister is right. I nodded earnestly. Consort D's face turned green, as if she had punched cotton. Madwoman. Wasting the noble blood of the Xi family of Jiangnan. She cursed once and stormed off. I didn't even bother watching her leave. I lowered my head and continued weeding. Qing Xing crept over timidly, eyes red. Niang, don't be sad. I laughed. Sad about what? Tonight we'll add an extra dish. Sadness was the most useless emotion. Xiao Xun arrived just as I was rolling up my sleeves and holding a sickle. The door was pushed open. Thinking it was Fu Shun returning with fertilizer, I didn't even turn my head. Finished carrying the night soil. Just dump it in the corner by the wall. Behind me, silence. I suddenly sensed something wrong and turned around. Xiao Xun stood at the doorway in bright yellow casual robes, face as black as the bottom of a pot. The chief eunuch behind him had his mouth open wide enough to stuff an entire egg inside. The sickle in my hand froze. This was awkward. I had just mistaken the emperor for an eunuch hauling night soil. I hastily threw down the sickle. This humble consort greets your majesty. My movements were still perfectly proper, my voice still resonant. Xiao Xun looked at me, then at the sickle. Beloved consort, this is. He seemed to be choosing his words. Cutting grass. Xiao Xun remained silent for a moment, then walked into the courtyard. He glanced around. It is rather quiet here. He sat down at the stone table, the only clean spot in the yard. On it lay a disordered chessboard and an open volume of Sun Tzu's Art of War. He raised an eyebrow. You understand this? I can comprehend a few parts, I answered honestly. Grandmother is from the Lin family. Your Majesty must know of old General Lin's resounding fame. Back when the northern frontier won its great victory, Your Majesty was still a prince and had already heard his name. He set the book down. Play a game with me. My hands are dirty, but I won't mind. Very well. I washed my hands and sat opposite him. He moved pieces quickly. An experienced player with a seasoned layout and sharp aggression. I played more slowly. After 1 incense stick's time, Xiaoxun's expression began to change. After 2, his white pieces were surrounded on all sides. After 3, I pushed my pieces forward in surrender. Xiaoxun narrowed his eyes. You haven't lost yet. This humble consort has lost. Your Majesty is wise and martial, your chess skill unparalleled. If I continued, it would only be me forcing Your Majesty to show mercy. Therefore, this humble consort concedes. He stared at me for a long time, then suddenly burst out laughing. It wasn't the restrained smile of an emperor, it was genuine amusement. The fatigue between his brows eased a little. You are rather interesting. I lowered my eyes. Your Majesty flatters me. Born of the Xi family of Jiangnan, father is the current Dali Saiking. Maternal family is a military clan. He glanced at me and coughed lightly, skipping over the familiar words I had heard 1,000 times. I came to Jinghua Palace at least so they can no longer say I favor sycophants and neglect state affairs. He muttered to himself. The relaxed expression from our conversation earlier returned to a furrow between his brows. The imperial censors lectured me for an entire watch. I couldn't argue back, so I left him to cool off for 2 days. He'll quiet down on his own. What? I put the pieces back into the box and spoke casually. This humble consort thinks that no matter how many fine or harsh words they say, the only real meaning is that they want you to pay attention to them. Oh. I looked up with a grin, saw Xiaoxun's face stiffen, and quickly lowered my head again. That great lord was simply eager to show his loyalty. Leaving him out for a few days should be enough. Xiaoxun looked at me for a long time. I lowered my head and tidied the chessboard. This humble consort spoke nonsense. Your Majesty need not take it to heart. When he left, his mood seemed quite good. Your radishes, he said, pointing at the vegetable patch. When they grow big, remember to send some for me to taste. As you command. That night, the Jingxi chamber sent word His Majesty had flipped Consort Duan's plaque. The entire harem exploded. That night Xiaoxun did not touch me. He lay on the dragon bed. I slept on the small couch. Between us stretched 10,000 miles. Nangniang will not come over, he asked. Your Majesty must be tired. Rest early. I was joking. The bed was tiny. I was afraid I would kick him off in the middle of the night. Xiaoxun gave a soft laugh. Then get up and play a few more games in the courtyard. That night we played 10 games, 5 wins, 5 losses. The next day he came to Jinghua Palace again. After a few visits, we grew familiar. Sometimes we didn't even play chess, we simply sat under the eaves drinking tea, while he casually spoke of the troubles at court. After he finished, he didn't expect me to reply. He just sat there in a daze. I listened while planting radishes, occasionally offering 1 or 2 words, mostly staying silent. He seemed to enjoy that atmosphere very much. The greatest advantage of Jinghua Palace, he once said, is that I don't have to act. I ask, does Your Majesty have to act everywhere else? He smiled and did not answer. Rumors spread throughout the harem that Consort Wan must know sorcery. She had bewitched His Majesty until he lost his mind. I heard Fu Shun repeat those words in Jinghua Palace. Nangniang, they say you know how to cast curses. I looked in the mirror and sighed. If I really had that ability, why would I have grown up like this? Consort D could not hold back and came to probe again. That day Xiaoxun was telling me about the northern frontier. Recently the nomadic tribes there had been restless. I was washing a crisp radish I had just pulled. This humble consort brought nothing into the palace except radish seeds. What? Xiaoxun asked. Grandmother once said, afraid that I might starve, that I must know how to grow a little food myself. No matter what, the house must always have a few handfuls of seeds. This humble consort is foolish and only knows how to grow radishes. Xiaoxun's eyes gradually brightened. I had told him before. I could always read him. Just then Consort D arrived carrying a bowl of ginseng soup with graceful steps. Your Majesty, this consort personally simmered. The moment she entered, she saw me sprawled lazily, half a radish in hand, a military map Xiaoxun had brought spread across the table. Consort D froze. Shouldn't this be a romantic scene of a beauty serving at his side? Why does it look like a gathering of bandits? His Majesty is discussing military affairs with Sister Consort Duan. Xiaoxun, interrupted, looked slightly displeased and ordered her to withdraw. As she left, Consort D looked at me as if I were a monster. The harem once again burst into rumors. Some said I had drugged His Majesty's tea. Others said even worse, that I was actually a male strategist disguised as a woman, specially devising strategies for Xiaoxun. I looked in the mirror at my own face. If I weren't built like this, Xiaoxun probably wouldn't be able to relax so completely. After all, this face of mine truly stirred no romantic thoughts whatsoever. That day Xiaoxun came again. The moment he entered, he collapsed into a chair, expression ugly. What happened? Today I argued with the court officials and won. No, lost. Want to try pulling radishes. Relieve stress. Isn't your Majesty the Son of Heaven who must understand the people's hardships? 2 hours later, Xiaoxun looked no different from Fu Shun after hauling night soil. If I hadn't stopped him, he probably would have uprooted the entire garden. Truly sweet, he said, gnawing on a radish he had pulled himself, sitting in the corner and watching the sun set behind the palace wall. Of course. This humble consort grew them personally. Xiaoxun took another bite. His mood seemed much improved. From that day on, he visited Jinghua Palace more and more often. Sometimes he brought memorials, reviewing them while chatting. Sometimes we only played chess. After winning, he would curse the court officials for a while, then go pull radishes to vent. When the radishes ran out, I told him to pull weeds instead. It didn't feel as satisfying, but it was better than nothing. That autumn, the northern frontier won a great victory. Great General Hu Jingju led the army out, repelled an enemy force of 100,000, reclaimed 500 li of old territory, and returned in triumph. A banquet was held in the Hall of Precious Harmony. As Consort Duan, my seat was considered toward the front, yet still at the edge. Xiaoxun knew my build was large and was used to letting me sit farther away. The consorts on either side were dressed in splendor, secretly glancing toward the general's tables. From afar I could see the man of the hour. Hu Jingju. He carried the aura of hidden thunder. Taller than Xiaoxun and darker than even me, clad in black armor, a faint scar ran from his brow to his temple. He did not smile. Sitting there like a silent mountain, the surrounding noise seemed to have nothing to do with him. The great ministers toasted him one after another. He accepted every cup but spoke little. I found this man rather interesting. Someone else who stood out from the crowd. Just then, a consort who somehow managed to walk in a straight line passed by me and, accidentally, knocked over my wine cup. Wine splashed across the ground. The cup rolled far away. I didn't know her. She covered her mouth and laughed without a trace of mirth. Oh dear, Consort Duan, please forgive me. Soft laughter rose around us. I bent to pick up the cup and glanced at my silk skirt. This fabric was expensive. Tailored for someone my size, it was even more costly. What a waste. After thinking for a moment, I deliberately kicked the cup even farther away. Just as I was about to bend lower, a large hand picked it up first. The hand was huge, knuckles distinct, the webbing between his thumb and forefinger thick with calluses from years of holding a blade. I looked up. Hu Jingju stood before me, holding the cup. His face was even darker than I had imagined. 2 shades darker than mine. His features were chiseled like they had been carved with a knife-high sword brows, deep-set eyes, gaze sharp as a blade. Up close, the scar looked like a drawn bow. He showed no extra expression, simply handed me the cup with calm courtesy. Consort Duan. His gaze was perfectly ordinary, just looking at another person. Very few people meeting me for the first time had such an expression. I was momentarily stunned before accepting the cup. Thank you, General. He nodded, turned, and left. I watched his retreating back and a thought suddenly rose in my heart. This man is truly interesting. His eyes must be terrible too. On the day of the Qingming ancestral rites, I also attended. On the way back to the palace we encountered assassins. It was a meticulously planned ambush targeting Xiaoxun. The scene fell into chaos. The imperial guards were split apart. The carriage I sat in remained steady as a mountain while the others overturned. Our carriage kept moving. When I stepped out, there was no one left around. My forehead had been grazed. Blood flowed into my eyes, but I did not faint. I scanned the surroundings. No sign of Xiaoxun. I believed he could take care of himself. I pulled out a golden hairpin from my hair. Qing Xing had insisted on pinning it before we left, saying only this befitted my status. With no convenient weapon at hand, this would have to do. A black-clad assassin finally caught up and charged at me. I did not scream. I did not run. Running wasted energy. Better to conserve strength and fight. I gripped the hairpin tightly and assumed the stance I had once learned from the drill instructor. Even though I had not practiced for many years, the foundation remained. All I needed was to stab him and then ram him with my body. An ordinary person would still fall. At the exact moment the blade was about to descend, a black-robed figure dropped from above. Blade, light flashed. The assassin collapsed. Hu Jingjia stood before me, fresh blood still dripping from the long blade in his hand. He glanced back at me. A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. He probably had not expected my hairpin stance to show real martial foundations. That wasn't a sword. Stay here. He tossed back, then turned and charged into the fray. I looked up and saw more than a dozen black-clad figures behind him. It was a brutal battle. Hu Jingjia fought like a fierce tiger descending the mountain. Wherever he went, blood and flesh flew. In the end, every assassin was slain. His arm had been slashed open. A long, deep wound that exposed bone. His Majesty is safe, only lightly injured. Imperial physicians are attending him. Hu Jingju sat alone on a rock by the roadside, tearing his sleeve to bandage himself while informing me of Xiao Xun's condition. I knew it. That fellow's life is hard to take. I breathed a sigh of relief. Hu Jingjia could only move one arm, his bandaging was clumsy. Let me. I stepped forward and squatted down. He looked up, about to refuse. Na Angniang's status is noble. I took the cloth from his hand and wrapped the wound with practiced movements. If you keep bleeding, you'll turn into a dried corpse. I lowered my head to tie the knot. His muscles were taut as stone. Niang is not afraid. Of course I'm afraid. I tightened the knot a little harder. He gave a soft grunt. But fear is useless. What if another group comes? Should I fight them myself? I need you alive first. The corner of Hu Jingjia's mouth twitched. The first time I had seen anything resembling a smile on his face. After bandaging, I looked at the old scars crisscrossing his body. General has many old wounds. Battle scars, I suppose. He answered lightly, as if it were nothing. I raised the back of my own hand, showing a scar. I have one too, from a radish root while planting. Hu Jingjia froze. Niangyang is truly impressive. For the first time, being called impressive sounded more pleasant to my ears than being called beautiful. Not long after returning to the palace, Hu Jingjia had to return to guard the northern frontier. Before he left, he had someone deliver a thank you gift, not gold or jewels, but a sack of wind-dried northern frontier beef. It was so hard it could kill a man if used as a weapon, yet the more you chewed, the more fragrant it became. I returned the courtesy with a basket of freshly pulled radishes. Red skin, white flesh, crisp and juicy, along with a letter. Thank you, General. Radishes are cheap, but fresher than beef and cooling. If provisions run low in the army, slice and dry them. They can still stave off hunger. Half a month later I received a reply. The handwriting was bold and powerful. Receive the radishes, tastier than army rations, already shared with the officers and soldiers. From then on we began corresponding. In the palace, private letters between a consort and a general were taboo, but Xiao Xun silently permitted it. My letters never took private routes, they were always tucked inside the memorials sent to him. Every time he finished reading the memorials, he would pull out the letter and hand it to me, eyes teasing. Your Radish general has sent another letter. Take it. Smells of beef. At first the tone was polite. He asked, Is Niang's health well these days? I replied, still well. The radishes in the courtyard are growing fast. General, the northern frontier winds are strong. Remember to apply oil so your skin doesn't crack. Gradually the content changed. The polite pleasantries disappeared and we began discussing serious matters. Once I even slipped in a crudely drawn diagram, an improved pixie. I had heard the northern frontier winters were freezing and livestock often died of cold. General, try building this half-sunk, half-raised sty. I tested it in Jinghua Palace. The two pigs inside snored like thunder. Hu Jingjia replied quickly. There was even a smear of ink on the paper, as if he had accidentally brushed it. Received the drawing. Already ordered men to construct a trial version. Also, Niang's painting is very spirited. That pig looks quite similar. Very similar indeed. I held the letter and laughed until my hands shook. I knew my drawing was terrible. The pig looked like a radish with a nose. Yet he still tried to praise it. Later we discussed military strategy. I had once mentioned a supply route I read about in my grandfather's old books. It was too circuitous and easily blocked. Hu Jinghua wrote back that he had inspected it personally. There was indeed a hidden danger, and he had already made adjustments. He wrote, if Niangyang were a man, she would surely be an outstanding general. I replied, if I were a general who would grow the radishes. The letters grew longer and thicker. Sometimes they even contained odd little gifts. Once, when I opened a letter, several red tang leaves fluttered out. The northern frontier had no red flowers, only these leaves. He wanted me to see them. Tang Tang. He began calling me that. Only my mother had ever used that name. I pressed those leaves into my copy of Sun Tzu as bookmarks. I sent something back too. Dried saphura flowers I had picked in Jinghua Palace, placed in a scented sachet. Saphura clears heat and cools the blood. The general's inner fire is strong. Brew and drink. The exchange was truly wonderful. Once he even asked, Niangyang, has that wild cat named Da Wang stopped stealing fish lately? No more stealing. She's pregnant. Now she sits at the gate demanding food. No fish, no leaving. One day Xiao Xun accidentally saw a letter I was writing. Shai Mingju, you never speak this much when you talk to me. His tone was sour. You even tell me about the cat using the latrine. I glanced at him. Those are trivial matters. Talking to your majesty is serious business. Qing Xing looked at the growing stack of letters and opened her mouth, then closed it again. Niangyang, you and the general only discuss military strategy, right? Her eyes clearly did not believe it. I continued writing, pretending not to notice her expression. Today the radishes grew another inch. I wonder if the potatoes at the general's place have frozen again. Next time I'll send some dried radishes. Perfect for snacking in winter. Only after I finished writing did I realize the corners of my mouth were lifted. Not good. I put down the brush and stared at the paper for a long time. Outside the window the wind rose, rustling the leaves. Stop thinking. There was never anything to begin with. Xiao Xun was very perceptive, yet lately he seemed a little slow. He apparently had not noticed that I was growing more and more distracted during our chess games. In the past I fought for every inch of the board, decisive and merciless, and would even mock him after winning. These past few days, while holding the pieces, my mind kept wandering to how strong the northern frontier winds were. Could they blow a person away? It was my turn. Xiao Xun tapped the board. I snapped back and placed a terrible move, walking straight into a dead end. In the past he would have laughed and slaughtered me without leaving a single piece. But today he quietly yielded a step and guided the game to a draw. The winds in the north have been strong lately, he said as he gathered the pieces. I noticed the radish leaves in your courtyard have started to yellow. If you want to make dried radishes, take advantage of these sunny days. The moment I heard, dried radishes, I instantly woke up. Thank you for the reminder, Your Majesty. This humble consort will have them harvested at once. The weather is perfect for drying. Xiao Xun lowered his head to drink tea and said nothing more. I was busy calculating how many caddies to dry and paid him no further attention. I have a few tightly sealed jars in my storehouse that are going unused, he said. Later I'll have Chief Eunuch Wang deliver them to you. Don't let the radishes get damp. Your Majesty is wise. Your Majesty truly knows how to live. I praised him casually while my mind was already wondering whether I should add some chili powder. Another time, I was reading Ho Jingju's letter. It said the northern frontier already had snow. He had built a snowman and stuck a carrot on its head, saying it looked like me. Same imposing aura as on the day of the selection. I read it and could not stop smiling. Only after laughing for a while did I remember Xiao Xun was still reviewing memorials beside me. I really was not giving my master any face. I quickly stuffed the letter into my sleeve and pretended to lift my teacup. What are you laughing at? Xiao Xun did not raise his head. The vermilion brush continued gliding across the memorial. Nothing. General Hu is so crude. What funny could he possibly write? His voice was indifferent, brush never stopping. The northern frontier snow is so heavy it almost collapsed the tents. I made it up. Xiao Xun gave a soft M. I thought the matter was over and continued thinking about the snowman. Then he spoke again. Truly pitiful. I remember the tribute of thick wool blankets just arrived in the storehouse. They'll only grow mold if left there. Later you may send some to him on my behalf. Say it is an imperial bestowal. I rejoiced. Many thanks, Your Majesty. On behalf of the northern frontier officers and soldiers, I thank Your Majesty. Hunuff, stop grinning like a fool. Your teeth are showing. That night, as he was leaving, he paused at the door and suddenly turned back. Shai Mingju, is the wall around Jinghua Palace too high? I did not understand. I looked up. Not high, just right for blocking the wind. Any lower and the pigs would run away. Xiao Xun looked at me with an indescribably strange gaze. I'm going. He turned and left. His retreating figure carried a trace of lonely desolation I could not understand. I scratched my head. It was rare for me not to understand him. Today was truly strange. Once again, war drums sounded in the northern frontier. The northern enemy had rolled back like a tide, their offensive fiercer than before. It was said they had mobilized the full strength of their nation. 300,000 cavalry pressing against the border. Hu Jingjia temporarily returned to the capital to discuss battle plans, then received the imperial decree and set out for the front once more. Before he left, he entered the palace to bid farewell. He met Xiao Xun first, then paid respects to the Empress Dowager. No one knew he had quietly arranged to meet one more person. That afternoon, I was watering the vegetables in the courtyard when a servant came to report. Niang Niang, someone requests an audience. I lifted my head and saw Hu Jingjia standing just outside the moon gate. He wore full armor, his posture straight as a freshly drawn blade. The slanting sunlight fell across him, tracing his cold, hard lines with a faint golden rim. General. Silence stretched between us. Only the wind rustled through the radish leaves. Hu Jingzhou reached into his breastplate and pulled out a very crude wooden hairpin. The wood was ordinary, the carving clumsy, yet I could still make out the faint shape of a flower. At 15, I had carved it for him with a hoarse voice, thinking that one day I would give it to him without needing to say a word. But I understood. I looked at the hairpin without reaching for it. My heart felt as if someone had squeezed it tight, sour and aching until I could barely breathe. General. I looked straight into his eyes, each word clear and steady. I am an imperial consort. I know. Hu Jingyu lowered his head to stare at the hairpin in his hand. Then I wanted you to know. He paused, then lifted his gaze. His eyes burned. I ask for nothing. Only this campaign to the northern frontier. Life and death are uncertain. There are words that must be spoken now, or I may never have another chance. He placed the wooden hairpin on the stone table. The soft click struck my heart like a hammer. Wet for my return. If I come back alive, I will enter the palace and beg His Majesty for one favor. If I do not return. He did not finish. He simply looked at me deeply. The nights in the northern frontier are very dark, yet the stars are especially bright. Bright like your eyes. With those words, he turned and left. I knew he did not dare linger even a moment longer. I stood frozen in place, watching his broad back disappear beyond the gate until the courtyard fell silent once more. That night I did not sleep. I sat in the yard staring up at the stars. Are the stars in the northern frontier even brighter than these? The moon rose and set. Only when dawn approached did I finally move. I walked to the stone table, hand trembling as I touched the wooden hairpin. It still seemed to carry the scent of his wind and frost. Hu Jingjia was gone. I fell ill, not seriously, just drained of all strength. Xiao Xun came to visit. He sat by my bedside, looking at my thinned face and sighed softly. Stop pretending. I know you are not sick. I opened my eyes. Your Majesty is wise. This servant has thought it through. Thought what through? One Hu Jingjia returns victorious. He said, gazing out the window. I will use the excuse that Consort Duan is gravely ill and send you to a royal villa to recuperate. After a year or two, we will announce your passing. Then I will give you a new identity. I sat bolt upright on the bed, staring at him in disbelief. Your Majesty, why? It was against all reason, all propriety. He would be placing the green hat on his own head with his own hands. Even though nothing had ever happened between Hu Jingzhou and me, for an emperor, such tolerance was unthinkable. Xiao Xun turned to look at me. In those peach blossom eyes, rare solemnity appeared. You are the only person in this harem who has never asked anything of me. You treat me as a friend. So do I. He smiled, the smile carrying a hint of bitterness. My whole life I have been imprisoned on this dragon throne. My body is not my own. Since I cannot have freedom, at least I can grant it to you. My eyes burned instantly. In all the years I had been in the palace, I had never cried. At this moment, tears fell without stopping. I slid off the bed and performed a deep, solemn bow, but no words would come. Xiao Xun helped me up, pretending to be disgusted as he wiped my tears. Enough, you're going to ruin my robes. Don't wipe your snot on me. I laughed through my tears. In the future, if I ever forget this benefactor, rest assured, I won't forget. I thumped my chest. The radish seeds are still here. Every year I will send you a whole cart. Xiao Xun laughed. A gentleman's word is his bond. From that day on, my illness was cured. I began counting the days, counting every victorious report from the northern frontier, counting the days until his return. Time passed, victory after victory poured in. With every battle report my heart grew a little steadier. Xiao Xun deliberately had the reports delivered to me. Then came the first winter. The final decisive battle, a great victory. The northern enemy withdrew, offered surrender. The entire palace held a feast to celebrate. I was watering the radishes, thinking that when Hu Jingjia returned, this batch would be perfect braised with beef. Just then, Qing Xing ran in, face deathly pale. Niang niang niang. She trembled so hard her stutter worsened. The water ladle in my hands suddenly felt heavier than 1,000 caddies. An ominous tide surged in my chest. Speak, I said. My own voice sounded terrifyingly calm. The great general. Qing Xing collapsed to her knees and burst into sobs. The great general, pursued the enemy, fell into an ambush, critically wounded. He is gone. The ladle fell and shattered. Water splashed across the floor, soaking my shoes and socks. I did not cry. I did not faint. I simply stood there staring at the puddles spreading across the ground, my mind completely empty. Gone. That man who had stood like a mountain. You once said my eyes were brighter than the stars. You said you would return and ask me for an answer. Gone. How can that be? I stood like that for I don't know how long, until my legs went numb, until the sky grew completely dark, until Xiao Xun arrived. He said nothing. He simply placed a small box on the stone table. It was Ho Jingjia's belongings. Inside was an unfinished blood-written letter. My hands shook as I opened the blood-stained paper. The characters were crooked and desperate. Tang Tang, wait for my return. I want. The brush stroke dragged long, as if he had used the last of his strength. What do you want? Why didn't you finish? I stared at those words. Finally the dam of tears broke. I did not wail. The tears simply fell silently. It felt as if a piece of my heart had been gouged out, and the wind howled straight through the wound. For 3 days I did not leave my room. I neither ate nor drank. I simply sat on the bed, clutching the wooden hairpin. Every day Xiao Xun came. He sat on the steps outside the door, saying nothing, simply staying there in silence. On the 4th night I opened the door. Xiao Xun stood up and looked at me. I had grown even thinner, eyes sunken, yet my gaze was clear again. The wooden hairpin was still in my hand. He told me to wait for his return so he could give me an answer. Now he cannot come back. So I will give myself the answer. I tied my hair up and pinned the crude wooden hairpin into it. We sat side by side, gazing at the night sky. The stars are very bright, he said softly. In the letter, he called you Tang Tang. I touched the hairpin. Only my mother ever called me that. He said your eyes were brighter than the stars. Xiao Xun did not reply. My voice was very soft. He really was blind. How could anyone's eyes be brighter than the stars? Xiao Xun's gaze drifted into the distance. Do not speak of my beloved general that way. His eyes were very sharp. Near dawn, Xiao Xun stood up. You still have me. I looked up at him. His expression was utterly serious. I will not let you be alone. He left. I remained seated there, watching the eastern sky gradually brighten. In the end, a single tear fell silently. 2 years later, Xiao Xun made me Empress. The court erupted. Consort Duan, that tall, dark Consort Duan. The entire court exploded. Consort Duan is ugly. Consort Duan lacks virtue. Consort Duan is too strong. Xiao Xun sat on the dragon throne, coldly surveying the ministers below. The Empress's virtue is not something you are qualified to discuss. Whoever speaks another word, I will send him to the northern frontier to plant radishes. The entire hall fell silent. On the day of the grand coronation ceremony, I wore the phoenix robe. Standing before the mirror, I was still dark, still powerfully built. The magnificent phoenix crown and robes could not hide my sturdy frame. The heavy ceremonial attire that would have suffocated anyone else fit me perfectly. I walked the imperial path with steady steps, expression calm. On both sides, the noble ladies bowed in greeting. No one dared lift their heads to sneer. Qing Xing followed behind me, secretly wiping her tears. Niang niang, the day has finally come. I smiled faintly. I wasn't sure where that day had actually led. That night Xiao Xun came to Cunning Palace. There was no bridal chamber ritual. We simply set out a few dishes and drank 3 jars of wine. Outside, rumors spread that the new Empress was awe-inspiring and fierce. He teased. Someone asked exactly how awe-inspiring. I looked in the mirror and raised a fist. That ox in the rumor must have been very small. Xiao Xun burst out laughing. After laughing for a long time, he looked at the wooden hairpin in my hair. Even after becoming Empress, I still wore it. He said nothing. He simply raised his cup. Tang tang, I toast you. 40 years passed in the blink of an eye. The people of Great Qi all knew they had a very strange Empress. She was not beautiful, in fact, she was rather fierce. Yet the harem under her rule was managed as tightly as an iron barrel. She never fought for favor, nor allowed anyone to play dirty tricks. Anyone who dared stir trouble in the palace was personally grabbed by the collar by Her Majesty the Empress and thrown out the gate. She even led the palace maids and eunuchs to plant half flowers and half vegetables in the imperial garden. Whenever there was a famine, the grain stored by the Empress was more than the Ministry of Revenue itself possessed. Xiao Xun and I became the most perfectly matched companions in the palace, growing old together from black hair to white. Xiao Xun aged too, his temples frosted, the elegant bearing of his youth gone, yet we still played chess and still argued. He said my chess had gotten worse and worse. I said his eyes had grown worse and worse. He said the radishes I planted were no longer as sweet as before. I said his mouth had grown more and more picky. The people in the harem changed generation after generation. Only the two of us remained. He had children with the other consorts. I treated them fairly, managing what needed managing, leaving alone what did not. Once he asked me privately, "Do you not want a child of your own?" I gave him a look. "Has your Majesty forgotten? We are siblings." He froze, then laughed. I almost forgot. Between us there was never any husband and wife meaning, yet we understood each other better than anyone. The winter Xiao Xun passed was early snow. He lay on the sickbed, holding my aged hand. We were both old. His hand was thin and dry. Mine was covered in calluses and wrinkles. His voice was very fang-tang. "I'm here," I answered. "On." He smiled. His voice grew weaker. "In the next life, I want to be your elder brother. That way I can protect you openly and rightfully." I watched him close his eyes forever. A gentleman's word. Xiao Xun was gone. Once again it felt as if a piece of my heart had been carved away. Another person had left. I lived another 10 years alone and became the Empress Dowager. The new emperor was very filial, though somewhat afraid of me. In the winter of my 72nd year, I fell ill. The imperial physician said the oil had run dry, medicine was useless. Lying on the bed, I asked them to remove the wooden hairpin and place it beside my pillow. Outside the window snow fell, early winter snow. I remembered many years ago in another winter, that man standing alone in the corner of the banquet hall drinking wine. He had said, "Your eyes are brighter than the stars of the northern frontier." He had said, "Wait for my return. I will ask you for an answer." When I closed my eyes, it was as if I saw the wind and snow of the north. I saw a young man in black armor riding through the blizzard, turning back to look at me. He smiled and said, "Tang tang, the radishes you planted are excellent." The official history recorded, Empress Duanhai of the Sea clan was not beautiful, yet possessed profound virtue. The imperial couple's affection was deep and true, becoming a cherished tale for generations. I thought that description wasn't wrong. This life was not beautiful, but it was lived well enough. The transaction was not a loss. Extra northern frontier winds, Hu Jingzha's perspective. The first time I met Tang Tang was not at the victory banquet. It was even earlier. The day before my triumphant return to the capital, I passed by the rear gate of Lord C's residence. The Dali Sai King's daughter was helping an old man push a cart loaded with coal. The wheels had sunk deep into the mud. The old man was sweating anxiously. The young lady did not hesitate. She rolled up her sleeves, revealing sturdy arms, lowered her stance, and gave a soft shout, "Up!" Both cart and man rose out of the mud pit. The old man thanked her profusely. She grinned, teeth flashing white and dazzling under the sun. "No need to thank me, uncle. I'm strong. Next time you need help, just call me. 2 steamed buns will do." Sitting on my horse, I paused. I had seen countless noble daughters in the capital, all willow, weak and flower, delicate, panting after a few steps. This was the first time I had ever seen a girl lift a several hundred catty coal cart and still smile like a blooming flower. At that moment I thought, this young lady has excellent bones. She is clearly trained in martial arts. If she had been born into a military family, she might have become a fierce vanguard. Later, when I saw her again at the palace banquet, she had already become consort Duan, sitting in the corner like a brown bear locked in a cage. The other consorts laughed and vied to show off their beauty. Only she poured her own wine and drank alone. Her eyes were clear yet distant, as if the splendor of the entire hall had nothing to do with her. Someone deliberately bumped into her, spilling wine all over her. She did not get angry, she simply bent down to pick up the cup. In that instant, I saw the indifference in her eyes. An elephant would not bother with an ant. As if possessed, I stepped forward and picked up the cup for her. Our fingertips brushed. Her hand had calluses, not from embroidery needles, but from heavy labor. At that moment, I knew we were the same kind of people. In this gilded cage, we were both misfits. I was an ill, fated child. When my mother gave birth to me, it was difficult. Blood soaked the ground. The midwife said it was hopeless. Yet I lived, and my mother died. My father stood outside the door. When he heard the news, the wine jar in his hand shattered. He never once stepped inside to look at me. Only later did I learn he hated me for taking his wife's life. At 3 years old, while other children chased butterflies in the yard, I was outside the barracks picking up horse dung. Dried horse dung could be burned for warmth in winter. An old soldier taught me that. At 7, I held a blade for the first time. It was so heavy my hands shook and went numb. The instructor said I had natural talent. The way I gripped the blade was perfect. That night my father, drunk, grabbed me and threw me out the door. Get out, you unlucky thing, just like your mother. I did not cry. I lay in the snow and looked up at the sky full of stars. The stars in the northern frontier were very bright. I thought, if only I could be like those stars. Bright enough that people would see me and not throw me away. At 12, I went to battle for the first time, not by choice, but because the enemy raided the camp. I killed 3 northern soldiers with a chipped blade and earned a scar across my face. All I felt was gratitude for still being alive. At 15, I was promoted to centurion. That year my father died of drink. On his deathbed he clutched my hand and said one sentence. Your mother's name was Jinghua. The name I gave you is hers. So he had not only hated me, he had also hated himself. At 20, I became a general, the youngest in the army. The winds of the northern frontier carved my face, and the battlefield blades dyed my eyes red. Someone once asked, General Huo, what do you want in this life? I said I did not know. I only knew how to fight, how to kill the enemy, how to survive. Until that autumn when I returned victorious. I was a rough man in armor. I understood neither wind, flowers, snow nor moon. I did not know how to recite poetry or match couplets. I only knew blades must be sharpened, horses must be fed, and my brothers' lives must be protected. Until I received that basket of radishes and the letter. General, you are too polite. Radishes are cheap, but fresher than beef and cooling. Perfect for the command tent. I read that letter 3 times. The handwriting was not soft, it was bold and unrestrained. Every stroke revealed strength. I bit into a radish, crisp, sweet, juicy. In this dusty borderland, that basket of radishes was a rare delicacy. I wrote a reply. I racked my brain for elegant words, struggled for half a day, and finally only managed the radishes are delicious. My deputy saw it and laughed until he fell over. General, are you writing to your sweetheart? Why does it read like a military order? I kicked him. Get lost. But inside, my heart felt warm. In this harsh land, someone remembered whether I had eaten meat, whether the heat bothered me. That feeling brought more peace than even a great victory. After that, exchanging letters became what I looked forward to most. Every time an envoy entered the capital with memorials, I prepared my letter in advance. I told her about the northern frontier snow, about new recruits wetting their pants, about wolves on the grassland. She told me about her vegetable garden, about the wild cat in the palace, about how she had provoked consort D until the woman nearly jumped. She wrote, if I were a general, who would plant the radishes. I looked at those words and laughed out loud. I thought, if I stopped fighting, if I went to plant radishes for her, it wouldn't be bad at all. I knew how to carry water and chop wood. My strength was far greater than that of any palace eunuch. The wooden hairpin. I had sketched its design at 15. This time, when I took it out, I carved it for a very long time. It was poplar wood, a tree unique to the northern frontier. Dead for 1,000 years yet still standing, fallen for 1,000 years yet never rotting. Just like my heart toward her. I did not want gold or jewels. Those were cold. I wanted to give her something warm. The day I entered the palace to say goodbye, I took out the hairpin intending to give it to her. She said, I am an imperial consort. At that moment, it felt as if a blade had twisted in my heart. I knew she was a consort. I knew I was a subject. But I could not stop myself. I wanted to take her away. To the northern frontier. To the desert. To anywhere without red walls and golden tiles. I wanted to watch her ride horses, watch her laugh on the grassland, watch her carry radishes running beneath the sunset. Wait for my return. Those were not empty words. I had planned everything. After this battle, I would hand over military command, even if it costs me every merit I have earned in this life, even if I have to return to the fields to plow. I will beg His Majesty for one favor. I wanted to gamble once. I gambled that His Majesty's feelings for her were only friendship. I gambled that he would grant us fulfillment. That battle was brutal. The northern enemy went mad. So did I. We were trapped at Black Wind Pass. Supplies ran out. Reinforcements had not arrived. My brothers fell one by one. The wounds on my body had gone numb. I had lost too much blood. My vision kept darkening, yet I could not fall. If I fell, the entire defensive line would collapse. More importantly, I had promised her I would return. I had not yet given her an answer. I had not yet personally pinned that hairpin in her hair. I killed until my throat tore. When the blade chipped, I used my fists, then my teeth. In the final moment, a cold arrow pierced my chest. Pain, strength drained from my body like water. I fell from my horse and lay on my back in the snow. Snowflakes landed on my face, icy cold. I remembered that sunset, remembered the radish leaves in Jinghua Palace, remembered every word she had written in her letters. Tang Tang, I'm sorry. I tore a corner of my robe with trembling hands. Tang Tang, wait for my return. I want to marry you. I want to take you home. My vision blurred. It was as if I saw her in plain clothes, holding a water ladle in the middle of the vegetable field, turning back to smile at me. Hu Jingjia, you're back. The radishes are ready. Tonight we'll have braised pork, okay? I answered softly in my heart and closed my eyes. Extra, the secret hidden in the dark drawer. Xiao Xun's perspective. In truth, I had always known that Shai Mingju and I were not the same kind of people. She was an eagle. I was a bird in a cage. She was the mountain wind of the wilderness. I was the temple bell. Once, while playing chess in Jinghua Palace, she won several games in a row. But unlike others who would nervously apologize, she bit into a radish and said, Your Majesty, your style is too steady. Sometimes you must learn the two words let go. In that moment, my heart stirred. Not romantic feeling, but the excitement of meeting a worthy opponent. I thought, this woman is truly interesting. Later, when Hu Jingjia appeared at the palace banquet, I saw the way Tang Tang looked at him. So bright. So straightforward. At that time I held my wine cup, and in my heart there was not the slightest discomfort. Instead, I felt as if dust had finally settled. I realized, so this is the opponent she truly wants. Someone who can stand beside her as an equal, not someone she must kneel before. That night I returned to my chambers and did not flip any plaques. Instead, I ordered someone to bring me Jing Zhou's military reports and every letter he had ever written. I read them all night. His handwriting was ugly and stiff, like blades chopping and axes splitting. I tried imitating it. After writing a few characters I laughed. I could not learn it. My own writing had been trained since childhood in the neat, round Imperial Academy style, precise, flawless, just like my life. They began corresponding. I was the messenger. Every time I received a letter from her, and saw the crooked pig she had drawn on the envelope, I could not help laughing. But I never opened a single one to read, even though I was the emperor and had the right to know everything. I did not want to. That was her small world. A place I could not touch. I was willing to protect that world and let no one disturb it, not even myself. Before Hu Jingjia's final campaign, I summoned him to the imperial study. I asked, if you win this battle, what do you want? Hu Jingjia knelt and kowtowed heavily without saying a word. I understood. That night I dismissed everyone. I unrolled a bright yellow imperial decree, ground ink, picked up the brush, and wrote a decree of release. I thought over every word for a long time and revised it 3 times. I did not want to use words like, depose the consort. I wanted to give her a clean identity. After I finished, I stamped the imperial seal and placed the decree in the highest, darkest drawer of the imperial study. When he returned victorious, I would give it to them as a wedding gift. Perhaps it was the most absurd thing I had ever done in my life, but it was also the thing I was most proud of. But Hu Jingjia broke his promise. The day the death report arrived, I was reviewing memorials in the imperial study. When I heard the word died, the brush in my hand dropped with a clack. Ink splattered across my robe. My first reaction was to walk to that dark drawer. I took out the decree. My hands trembled. Too late. Everything was too late. I went to Jinghua Palace. She stood there clutching the wooden hairpin, not crying. But I knew Shai Mingju, the radish general who loved to tease me, had shattered at that moment. I wanted to step forward and hug her, to tell her not to be afraid, that she still had me. But I stopped. I watched her personally pin the wooden hairpin in her hair. I watched a quiet despair in the depths of her eyes. I understood. At a time like this, any words of comfort were useless. The only thing I could do was stand beside her like a true elder brother, shielding her from the wind and snow crashing down. She remained and became my Empress. For those 40 years, there was one secret between us that everyone knew: Jinghua. Every year on the day we honored him, I went with her to pay respects, not at the imperial mausoleum, but in the small Buddhist hall of Cunning Palace. There stood a spirit tablet with no name. She lit incense for the tablet. I stood beside her and lit the candles. She spoke to the tablet. I listened quietly. Sometimes in my heart I also spoke a few words to him. Jinghua, rest easy. She is living well. This year the Radishes had another good harvest. I have never bullied her, nor let anyone else bully her. Sometimes I even felt that Jinghua was still there, in her wooden hairpin, in the radish beds she planted, in the quiet spaces between us. I was never jealous of him. Truly not. On the contrary, I was grateful. Thank you for giving Tang Tang the brightest years of her life. Thank you for leaving a flame in her heart so that this deep palace would never make her grow cold. Do I love her? Yes, very much. I am leaving soon. The great limit has come. She sat by the bed holding my hand. Her hand was rough, covered in calluses, the marks of years of labor. I gently stroked those calluses. My heart felt strangely at peace. Tang Tang. Aksan, I'm here. I looked at her. I looked at the wooden hairpin in her hair. Suddenly, I very much wanted to tell her that secret. I raised my hand, intending to point toward that dark drawer in the study. But at the last second, I held back. Inside lay a yellowed imperial decree and countless sheets of paper on which I had practiced imitating Jingju's handwriting, writing the two words Tang Tang over and over. I could not let her see that I owed her. I did not want her to think that in these 40 years together, I had still hidden other thoughts. I hoped that in her heart, I would forever remain the elder brother who could discuss the world with her. Carefree and straightforward. She did not need to know the rest. I smiled with some effort. In the next life, I want to be your elder brother. A real elder brother who can protect you openly and rightfully. I saw her cry. Tears fell onto the back of my hand. Good. A gentleman's word. That is enough. In this life I could not give her freedom. In the next life I would definitely give her freedom sooner, then hand her over to him. I closed my eyes. In the darkness, it was as if I saw a young emperor standing at the gate of Jinghua Palace, watching the young woman squatting in the garden pulling weeds. He thought, this young woman is truly interesting. If only, but even without if, this was already good enough. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.